Last year, I had the opportunity to share with some of you our Bitcoin Rewards and Lightning project. This year, I've got something a little bit different. It's called Bitcoin Security. Bitcoin has a lot of use cases. I mean, the use case that I talk about a lot is store of value, and I think that's obviously worth quite a lot to the civilization. A use case that we're going to talk about with David Marcus at the end of the day is medium of exchange, and that's a very exciting session, and there's a lot of discussion about Bitcoin as a transactional settlement technology. But there's a third value proposition for Bitcoin, which I'm also very interested in, and it's a system of trust. You have this immutable, unstoppable, immortal, decentralized network, and it's storing data, and it's providing integrity, and it's executing transactions. And of course, the first grand idea was, first people thought, we'll move money without a trusted counterparty. And then they thought, well, I guess we could just keep the money in cyberspace forever without a trusted counterparty. And that was the medium of exchange and the store of value. But the third thought is, well, if there's something that I trust more than I trust any particular counterparty, maybe I can leverage that system of trust. And that was really the genesis of this next project. And I'm going to introduce it, and then Cesare, our head of engineering, is going to show it off. It's based upon this idea of decentralized identity. For those of you who who use Instagram or YouTube or WhatsApp or maybe X, one of the frustrations has been, how can you trust anything that's posted? For a long time, I have a fake Saylor channel that spins up every 15 minutes on YouTube. And the way that you know it's not me is I'm offering to give you 2 ETH for every ETH you send me. And that's definitely not me. But also, I'm offering to give you Bitcoin. I'll give you 2 Bitcoin for every 1 Bitcoin you send me. And it's very frustrating because I know it's not me, and a lot of people know it's not me, but some people seem to think it's me because I get a lot of emails, sometimes saying, I got tricked by that. And the solution oftentimes is a very laborious verification process. It may be expensive. It costs like $1,000 a month for a gold check from X Twitter. And it's a proprietary gold check because you can't take it to WhatsApp or YouTube, or your Microsoft environment. And of course, Meta's got their own little blue check thing, and then Google's got a different black check thing, and they don't work that well, and they're all very proprietary. And that's one of the challenges of digital identity today. You end up with a centralized identity, and maybe you're logging in with Facebook, or you're logging in with Apple, or you're logging in with Google, and you start thinking, well, what happens if one of those websites or one of those systems gets hacked? Or what if it goes down, or what if one government somewhere decides to send a court order to one of those, maybe the Australian government sends a court order to one of these things and they take you off the network. So it's a lot of anxiety, it's very fragile, it's very brittle, it's very expensive, and it just doesn't work that well, and I think that's been a frustration of a lot of people. You end up with all sorts of challenges with these frameworks. How do you verify who you are? Is the data private? Do you really want some central organization to know everything you logged into? How do they interoperate? And that caused us to start thinking, wouldn't it be great if instead of a blue check or a green check or a gold check or a black check, what if there was an orange check? What if there was a cyber passport that you got once in your life, and it was based on public-private key cryptography that you could take with you? If I paid a nickel for it or a penny for it, and it was anchored into an immutable, unstoppable, incorruptible network, that could be a global standard as opposed to some local nation-state standard. And then maybe I would log into that system using my private key and public key pair. And we saw a little bit of this pop up. One example is in the Nostr environment, when people started using public-private key pairs to log into various Nostr-compatible clients. And of course, we saw another example of this in Bitcoin, where the public-private key pair is how I move money around. And the most famous example or question here has been, well, will Satoshi ever prove they exist by digitally signing a message with their private key? And of course, we know that's possible in the Bitcoin environment, and it's worth, in this particular case, $65 billion to do it. But we haven't really levered this idea of public-private key cryptography anchored into a proof-of-work network for most commercial applications. And MicroStrategy thought maybe we could approach this idea of decentralized identity combined with Bitcoin and then create an enterprise application for it. So that was the genesis of this Orange project. And what you can see is on one side, you've got the decentralized identity, and that's the public-private key pair. On the other side, you've got the Bitcoin network, which is your system of record, which is really just a global fault-tolerant computer system controlled by no government, no corporation, no person. Our vision is to provide an internet-native, decentralized digital identity backed by Bitcoin. So we want to use the open standard of DID, and then we want to use the open standard of Bitcoin, and put the two together. And of course, why would you use Bitcoin? Well, it is fault-tolerant. It is censorship-resistant. It does use the most advanced cryptography. It's a lot better than most people's password managers and these federated systems. It's distributed. But of course, you know, we come back to the issue of why is Bitcoin successful? It's open, permissionless, egalitarian. That's why it's successful. So an open standard means it could appeal to every country, you know, and it could appeal to every company. There's no way that Apple wants to trust Google. There's no way that Google wants to trust Meta. There's no way that Americans will trust a Chinese company. There's no way the Chinese will trust an American company, right? And so how do you build a system for millions of counterparties that maybe don't trust each other, and how do you make it open? And of course, the beauty of Bitcoin is there's been so much development on public-private key cryptography. In the Bitcoin system, people spend obsessive amounts of time thinking about, you know, seed phrases and seed phrase recovery and public-private key pair, and then multi-signature and signing devices. You know, because you're going to move a lot of money around, that's important.